Welcome to Hashtag General, a show where the hosts and the guy behind the camera are all halfway vaccinated. I'm one of the halfway vaccinated people, Logan Studley. Joining me, as always, is another half-vaccinated person, Chris Akamura. How you doing, Chris?
Pretty good. Our powers combined, we make a fully vaccinated person.
Yeah, and then some.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, our pre-show conversation involved griping about arm pain and having to sit differently because, Chris, you can't see me, but people watching can. I'm leaning on the arm that I get the shot in, and this is how I normally sit anyway. And so the day after I got the shot, I kept leaning against it, and wasn't fun.
Yeah, I have the same problem where I sleep on the arm
Oh,
that I usually do, so I had to sleep the other way, and it was a little awkward. But,
yeah, and
well
small
worth.
things like that you don't realize like how much they can throw you off because your body's just like this isn't how I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Fickle
Muscle memory's
bodies.
a bitch.
Yeah. But besides vaccines, what have you been up to?
Nothing much, man. Just chilling. I'm playing a lot of Pokemon Snap the last 3 days.
Yeah, that one just came out, right?
Yeah, that came out on Friday.
Yeah.
So I just finished I finished the story of it last night at like 2 a.m. And then now it's just a matter of, backtracking and completing and doing everything else. But that game is great, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I had started this back when on our last episode or not, but I've been watching MASH again because
Okay.
got
Because that's what one does.
that's one does. MASH was a show I watched a lot growing up, so for me, it's kind of like this weird. It's like it's both a good show on its own, but there's also kind of like a nostalgia aspect for me specifically
Right.
because it was something like I did in the evenings with my like dad and sister growing up.
Right.
So yeah, I've been making my way through it. But yeah, other than that, it's just been kind of like a quietish 2 weeks in the sense of just not much going on other than like the normal work stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. Super cool.
no, it's kind of weird how like sometimes like even though we're about to go out of the new normal to a different new normal, it's sometimes interesting when we have like where there's like a couple weeks where you're like, yeah, no, they were just normal. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really have much more to talk about there. But other few things I have actually are more to run past, talk to you about later. Um, but yeah, I guess the next bit is just a bit of follow up on our conversation last week about the Lord of the Rings budget.
Yeah.
Evidently, the way the story was written, it was everyone took it that they were talking about the first season when they were talking about the budget of I think like 450 million. Apparently, Deadline later actually put out an article clarifying that it was actually 450 for seasons 1 and 2. And so what we learned was that production actually for the 2 seasons was back to back, which is why their budget was known as just one block item because it was being produced as one block item but was going to be released by Amazon as 2 separate seasons, which makes the budget a bit more like reasonable, but it's still probably the most expensive show ever made at this point.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, but you're looking at least
That's some big money.
225 a season. That is crazy. I think Game of Thrones didn't even really cross 100 million until like season 6. And then I don't think it
Yeah.
ever really went much higher than that. Mandalorian also was in like the 100 million range, but this is just bonkers. This is Avengers and Star Wars movie level budget, not TV
Yeah.
budget. So just a small bit of follow up that it's not as crazy as we thought, but it's still crazy. Yeah, not much more to share other than that clarification. So
Yeah, no, totally agree.
yeah,
It's like I said, I'm excited for it. It's just I'm cautiously optimistic.
yeah. This honestly, this bit of news made me feel more comfortable with it because if it was like the whole thing when we first thought it was 450 for the one season, it was just like, oh my god, this thing just can't fail. Otherwise, it's one of a like otherwise you get like a Heaven's Gate or type situation where it's best known, or Cleopatra, where it's best known for how big the budget was, not necessarily whether or not it was a good film or series, just because it just couldn't perform to the level it needed to. And this just at least means that lessens it a bit. It still is going to be have a lot of pressure on it in terms of delivering, but it's just like half the pressure we thought for one season.
Yeah,
So which made it a bit of a easier pill to swallow. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll have to, as it gets closer and closer, I'm sure we'll be talking about it more because there's two things consistent in my life, and that's Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. And well, you know this show. It's basically all Star Wars all the time, but we can now add Lord of the Rings to it too. By the way, no Star Wars topic this week because Bad Batch doesn't come out for 2 days.
yeah, and really nothing happened otherwise.
Yeah. So next episode, all Star Wars. Let's move along, shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
So the big thing in tech last week was Apple's spring event, where we got AirTags finally, new iPad Pro, and new iMacs. Did you see the bit on AirTags where people were getting their AirTags delivered, and if the packaging had dates as early as 2019?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
That means Apple sat on them for 2 years, had them, and just was like, meh.
Had them and didn't announce them.
Had them, didn't announce them. Lots of speculation over if it was like a regulatory concern because of Tile, or if it was just like COVID, or like no one, like there's so many different theories out there. But I think the fact that they just sat on them for 2 years is, to me, the most interesting piece. And it also explains why rumor mill had been saying AirTags are coming out at the next event for so long, because Apple
They're
had
done.
them.
Yeah.
Apple had them. They were done. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on stuff like that? Have you ever looked at a Tile system or now AirTags, or is this just something that you're like, oh, that's nifty, I don't have a use for it?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've looked into quite a bit because Jang's super forgetful. And it's something that I would probably use too. Uh, I think the price point is fair. I think it's pretty low considering the amount of tech that's in there.
Yeah.
It was right around where I thought it would be. So
Yeah.
I think this could be a big deal for them.
Yeah.
So,
I immediately thought, because the thing I misplaced the most is especially under lockdowns where I don't need them that often, my keys. So having something where I could just really quickly hit a button on my phone, which I usually always have on me. If I don't have it, I have my iPad, would make, my keys a bit easier. I also know that my family is looking at taking a trip to outside of the North American continent next year. And I was just like, you know what? This would be great for luggage. Even because
yeah.
I remember I made that comment to, I think, my sister, and she was like, why? It's like, is it that hard to identify? I'm like, no, it's not that it's hard to identify your luggage. But how often are you standing there waiting for the carousel to go by, and then your bag is like the last one that comes out? If you have like a proximity sensor, you can sit there and be like, yeah, I know it's not out yet. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to push my way to the edge yet because I'm not getting the alarm. Also, if they decide to ship it to the wrong place, it's a bit easier to track down. But yeah, I guess the big thing, though, beyond AirTags are the iPad Pro and the new iMacs. What'd you think when you first saw anything about them?
I was shocked that they put an M1, like a full M1 in
Yeah. That
the iPad Pro.
that caught me off guard. Um, but I mean, Apple's been marketing iPad Pros as if they're a computer. Like they're very careful to not say computer and also at the same time not say tablet. But they've been pushing it more into that space of where they want it to be viewed as like a fully fledged and fully capable computer device. And I think that
Yes.
M1 chip, because really when you get down to it, it's still built on the same process as the A series. So it isn't like they had to do a whole feat of engineering to put the M1 in there, but it totally lines up with how they've been marketing iPad Pros. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think it also like really, and this would be the thing I would say too, as someone who loves my iPad, the biggest problem with the iPad Pro isn't the power. Like if you looked at it just from like a perspective of the capability of the device in terms of its hardware, I think the iPad Pro has been one of the most interesting devices on the market the past few years because it is just so powerful in such a small shape. Like it's kind of mind blowing to think about how powerful an iPad Pro is. The problem is it still does not have the software or the operating system that takes advantage of it. And I think putting in the M1 processor just made that even more apparent to, like people who were already saying it, but I think it just kind of hammered that idea home where it's just like, yeah, the hardware's there, but this like the OS side of things on the iPad is just not up to snuff.
Sure.
And then throwing in the same chip as a Mac, I just really made that even more apparent. Where it's just like,
Yeah, it's very clear.
it's like I, I'm not on the Mac OS on the iPad bandwagon. I don't think that would be a very good user experience, given how iPads are used by the majority of people. But iPad OS needs to break away from some of the harder restrictions that exist on iOS in terms
Well,
of just
that's sort of where I think we're getting rumors that the iOS 15 or iPad OS 15 is going to be very different. It's going to be revealed at
yeah.
WDTC. So,
Yeah, I'm hopeful in that regard. Like I'm hopeful that those rumors, because they've been fairly quiet. I want to say they've been quiet rumors for a while now that Apple is planning to do more with iPad OS, and they need to follow through
yeah,
because like the OS is holding the device back, and kind of to this point, like I actually bought a new computer this week. Uh, One of the
oh,
nice things about my job is I know it's going to be fully remote even when things open back up, which means I can travel and work. And I have used my iPad for work. It has been incredibly handy, but it admittedly the one thing is one of the biggest pieces of software we use. There's no iPad equivalent. So I for that I had to get a Mac. So I actually bought one of the new one new quote new M1 MacBooks. Great device, enjoying it. But if it wasn't a software question of Mac OS versus iOS or iPad OS, and it just came down to if the devices could do all of the functionality the same, and it was not a software issue, but just which hardware did I want to carry, I would rather still carry my iPad around. But I knew for my work I had to get the MacBook,
sure.
and I think that kind of especially this past week because I'm going to be actually traveling to go see my family for the first time in over a year. Like it really hammered home that point where it's just like I love my iPad. I can do most of everything I need to do with my iPad, but now that I have this MacBook, it's like so many of the things I do on my iPad. Yes, the MacBook can do it, but also I don't have to jump through as many hoops because just the Mac platform is a bit more mature, which means the software is there and already capable, and a lot of the restrictions of iOS just don't exist. And so just getting some of this stuff done on the MacBook would be just a little bit easier than doing it on the iPad. And it's just, That's the problem. Is it shouldn't be that way. So yeah, like I think some of the display tech, I wish it was in the 11 inch and not just in the 12 inch, but hearing them talk about some of the display technology and just a bunch of other stuff going in the iPad. The new iPad Pros are like seriously, if they did run Mac OS, it would be probably some of the best devices on the planet in terms of price to performance. Like undoubtedly.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's just they really need to get iPad OS up to snuff.
yeah, totally agree. I think that the mouse usage is a little awkward too. So I think all cleaning it up and making it we'll see if we
Yeah,
get if June rolls around and we get this full-fledged like uh you know laptop quality, PC quality, computer Mac quality OS running on iPad, then that's kind of a game changer to me.
yeah, because it's the thing I've run into with some things too is it's just like there's some tools I use that they either don't have an app or their mobile platform is bad. It's just like there's so many things where the iPad experience is better, but then on the flip side, there's so many things where like just the iPad experience was never considered, or even the mobile experience was never considered by whoever whatever program I'm using. And that's not Apple's fault or the iPad's fault, but it's just I think proof that the ecosystem has the capability, but because the platform just hasn't matured to that point, no one feels this need to make sure that their stuff works on the platform.
Yeah,
But yeah, we'll see what happens in June. The final thing was iMacs. They're colorful.
yeah, I like it a lot.
My only thing was I remember talking about this with James. It was I really prefer the black bezel only because I feel like it makes the screen kind of disappear more
Sure.
because you can't see the edge. But outside of my little gripe about I wish the bezel wasn't the same color, I do like some of those color options. The
Yeah,
other thing too is, and this would be something I would tell people if they're looking at it, like this does not replace the 27-inch iMac. This is clearly just the entry level iMac. I,
yeah,
I don't think Apple's put out at this point. I don't think any of the stuff they've put out with their new Apple Silicon processor has been a pro device, even if it has pro in the name. They've all been like the entry, more consumer friendly ones, which makes me wonder what we're going to see at WWDC. Like, are we going to get like MacBook Pros that are
super colorful.
M2s? Like, like what is going to happen on the Pro end? Is like the iMac 27-inch replacement going to be just as colorful, or are they going to appeal to people like me who are like black bezels, please, and to where it's
Well,
just
we're
still
gonna
like the
get
metal
that
thing?
June. We're gonna get the watch update.
Hmm.
We're gonna get phone update. We're gonna get the iPad Mini update, which is all apparently spec, not anything internal. Or
Yeah,
like it's all internal. It's nothing like big design change wise.
yeah.
Um, a little disappointing there, but otherwise, pretty standard stuff from what I can see. Maybe we get the Apple Car.
Yeah, what's the well? Who's doing that? It's is it Hyundai or is it Kia?
I think it's I think it's Kia. It was Hyundai, or
Yeah,
it's Hyundai. It was Kia. It's one of those. One of them got dropped for another one.
yeah, which is kind of, I mean, it's smart because it means Apple is diving in, but not actually like throwing a bunch of money at the car.
Yeah,
Like it's because I think that would have been like a fool's errand for Apple if they went in and spent billions of dollars building their own like automotive manufacturing capability, but they clearly have an interest in the tech side of it. I think this year is a little too early. I think I think it's still probably a couple years away. Same with the long rumored AR glasses. I've seen a couple places claim that it's going to be happening this year, or at least like the first generation of it. Where and the rumor on that one is that Apple's AR glasses are going to be more, if you look at them like the iPhone, because like the first iPhone was good but
Right.
limited. Second iPhone was better, but it still had like really wasn't until the iPhone 4 where the price kind of finally hit a point and it looked good. Like that's what people are
Yeah.
arguing, is that we're going to be seeing another thing like that where early adopters might hit grab the first or second gen or even third gen, but like the fourth gen is the one where it goes from being the thing the nerds have to the thing everyone has.
Right.
So even if the AR glasses do come out this year, which I doubt, I have a feeling that'd be a next year thing. Like they're not going to be the mind-blowing game changer because Apple doesn't want them to be the mind-blowing game changer. They want to make sure that they're, it's the same thing with the iPhone where they want the base, they want to make sure it has a solid foundation and then build upon it rather than trying to throw everything and the kitchen sink in all at once and then have something
Right.
subpar. Apple's not first, but they aren't the first to do it, but they always want to be the right one to do it, the one to do it right first.
Right.
But yeah, the spring event was kind of just, yeah. I thought the IMAX looked interesting, but for the stuff I do, I knew that I was not the market for them. So because like James, you looked at them kind of briefly, right?
At the IMAX?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like no one cares how thin their desktop computer is. Stop making them too thin. If if your computer is an inch thick versus being a half inch thick, how does that like change your life? It's not like going from a CRT to a flat screen. It's just like, okay, whatever. It's still like a
Yeah, we've
physical
hit
item.
diminishing returns with that.
Yeah.
It's
What's
just like,
crazy
come
is
on, stop.
like the logic board and all that stuff is basically like the same size as like what you'd put in a laptop. Like we've hit, because Apple has used laptop parts in the iMac for like over a decade. And a lot of that is just how they've designed it and built it. They needed parts that run at lower wattages or cooler. And we've hit the peak laptop with this new iMac, and that the logic board is tiny. Like 95% of your iMac or the new iMac is just display and display tech and hardware. And then like 5% is computer. It's so ridiculous. Like it's just I wouldn't want to buy one to replace my current iMac. I mean, I'm not looking to replace my current iMac, but if I was, this ain't it. It's just, again, yeah, everything they've done so far has been consumer focused. So what pros are going to get is still a big, huge question mark. I don't know if that's what really matters for people like you and me, and of course James, given your work, where you, sure, it could do the work you're doing, but yeah, you might as well stick with your old trash can Mac Pro.
Yeah.
Trash can for like 5 more years.
Right?
Like, it's fine. It makes it very hot in my room in the summer. It's like a trash can on fire.
Heater in winter, furnace in summer. Yeah. Let's move along, shall we?
Let's go.
So, tomorrow, the big trial of the week. I'm sure someone out there is
Yeah.
going to have a headline of the century. Apple versus Epic actually finally goes into trial proceedings. Arguments start tomorrow. We talked about this a few times when the case started, and then it wasn't that there was new information, but so much as bits and chunks, and not enough to devote a full section of time to. So we might as well do it now because there's been some interesting stuff that has been come out due to, Apple and Epic doing discovery, not just with Apple, but like Apple was getting information about Steam from Valve in terms of its, market and how it operates. But there's so many like other outside things that are just adding pressure. Like Microsoft recently in the past week lowered its rate on the Microsoft Store for, applications
Yeah.
to 12%,
From 30.
from 30, to where it's just like there is definitely some push from other players in the market to try to make Apple's
like
30 going from the norm to now the outlier.
Yeah, so I think there is a culmination coming with all of the companies realizing like, hey, this is our time. Like there's a chink in the armor. Strike now.
Yeah,
And
they're all going now, and it's
yeah,
like
the timing is unreal. The timing everyone is realizing like, oh, now is the time to strike.
we have a fortnight to strike.
Yeah. Epic has opened the door, and they're like, all right, here we go. This is I don't know who's going to win this court case, because again, this court case is extremely important.
Mm-hmm. It's going to go bad for it's either going to go bad for one of them or both of them. I don't think there's a situation where it walks away where we could say it went well for either of them. I think it's going to be a question of who gets hurt more, Epic or Apple. Because Apple's 30% is too high, but at the same time, when the App Store opened up, it was a bargain. It was a great deal, and it was the standard for digital distributions, and it was competitive with the market of retail, where it was like, instead of buying the app on the shelf in the store, you bought it digitally, and it's all in one place. It's just like, it had a lot of benefit, but Apple has abused its position, especially when it comes to spaces where they are a competitor, like Spotify. Like, in fact, the EU even said Apple is in violation of antitrust rules regarding Spotify and subscriptions this past week. So there's already an international court case that's basically said Apple doesn't play nice when it comes to their App Store commission policy. And if Apple... There's a part of me that thinks if Apple had done this smarter, they would have lowered their rate to 15 across the board, not just with the first for people who have under $1 million in sales. They would have done it 15 across the board. They would have changed their rules to where anyone who is in a space where they are a competitor, mainly like video, music, competitors can use their own payment system and can't force users to have to log out or go do it on a website. Like, they could have made some small, minor changes and kept most of what they want to keep intact. And they
just didn't want to budge.
They just didn't want to budge, and I think that could come back and bite them hard. I don't think Epic's case or argument that Apple is a monopoly holds any water. Epic is going to have to somehow thread the needle when it comes to convincing a judge that the App Store on an iPhone is different than Microsoft's commission with an Xbox. Admittedly, Microsoft has just lowered their commission rates on stuff, so they might have an argument that the rate might be lower, but they are going to have a harder time saying that closed platforms can't have closed app stores. I don't think they have the case to argue that. And I also don't think Apple really can sit there and justify some of their decisions when it comes to how they don't allow third-party payment. It's just, I don't think either of these guys has a winning hand. And I think
No.
Epic's biggest problem is honestly how they behaved around the case, on
Yeah, they've
top
been
of the fact
very.
that they have a hard case to prove. Like, they've
Yeah.
pissed off the judge. Like, that's not a good position to be in. They pissed off the judge way earlier last year during the court case because so much of Epic's complaints was PR marketing spin, and the judge just didn't buy it because the judge wasn't dumb. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing stopping Epic from putting updates to Fortnite on iOS or macOS that are capable of working with the current platform. They would just have to remove the ability to purchase items outside of the Apple's platform. And Apple even agreed with the judge that they would hold the payments in escrow until the court case was done, and Epic said no. Because they want to sit there and talk loudly and try to rally forces to be like, look at how evil Apple is. They won't let you have your game, when Epic is actually the reason why the game's not there. And the judge basically called them on it. Like, I think Epic's behavior is going to come back and bite them. And that might be Apple's best case situation here, because Epic did this to themselves and they have a harder case to prove. I think Apple should face some regulatory scrutiny. I don't think this court case is going to deliver it the way Epic is wanting. I think what Epic really wants is either do their own payments or to have their own, be able to have their own third-party store on iOS. And I think they might get the payments. I don't think there's any way in hell they're going to get their own app store.
Yeah, it's like I really wouldn't want Apple's App Store or iOS in general to be like the Android App Store, which, I mean, I haven't used it in 10 years, but it was bad. It was, I mean, there were the same apps that you could get on iOS, but there's just like a lot of janky garbage that's horrible. And like, please don't make that. Like, that's like a big reason to have an iPhone.
Yeah.
But I don't care how much Apple charges the app people. I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. It is annoying to not be able to buy or rent a movie on like Amazon Prime on the iPhone. That's super annoying.
And and that's the thing where if I have said like before, like Spotify is one of like the worst case. Like I agree with Spotify's argument, but they're also like the worst people to make some of their arguments because they'll sit there and bitch about how Apple will lock down part of their operating system, and then when Apple gets whatever tool that they were testing, basically Apple uses its own apps to make sure that the whatever system they're using is going to work before they allow developers to have access to it. And Spotify would sit in there arguing that gave Apple an anti-competitive edge. Not really, but once Apple opened up some of those tools, Spotify would never put them in their app. Like, it was just one of those cases where they were just finding anything to try to bitch and moan and claim that Apple was hurting them. And
that's again the problem with like a lot of these companies, a lot of stuff that we're talking about, where it's like, yeah, they all have cases, but they all don't help themselves. So like they all of them, like, they're just gonna like screw each other over for like very little gain. Where if they just collaborated a little bit more, things would go a lot smoother. But like, again, this is why we had this problem to begin with. Yeah,
because like Apple's nightmare would go away if they literally like let Amazon do rentals, which actually I think you can do now. You can't buy Kindle books, but you can buy rentals.
Or the thing with Xbox, with not Game Pass, with the xCloud stuff. Yeah. Do you see what's going on with that?
Yeah, now you have to do. I think Microsoft is using Rainway's tech to run it through Safari.
Browser, Safari, yeah.
And that's not a good experience. Yes, that's the alternative to the App Store. But, I mean...
It's not ideal, but it's not
It's not ideal.
I thought it would be way worse, but it's actually pretty smooth.
I'll have to, guess, try it out then. But it's... Apple... There's so much self-harm Apple's been doing that if they had just gotten off their damn high horse and just started to go, okay, you know what? Yeah,
To be
we,
fair, the high horse is sort of Apple's bread and butter.
yeah,
That the high horse is kind of what people like about Apple.
yeah. But figure out, because I get also like the thing too is there are a lot of game developers out there where they made bank on Facebook and on Android and on other places because Facebook didn't have good quality parental controls and didn't offer refunds if a kid, spent 10 grand on Farmville. Whereas Apple does have a lot of those controls. And I'm legitimately concerned, and I think Apple might make this argument, that if they allowed anybody to do a third-party payment, it is going to open up abuse. Like,
Yeah.
and they are right. And that's, again, it's like to James's thing where it's just like, I don't want the App Store to lose some of that thing. I don't want any app to just be like, no, I'm going to use my own payment system. Which, again, the problem there is, and this is what the whole thing with Epic, they talk about they're fighting for the little guy. You see the same thing with Facebook trying to claim they're fighting for the little guy with personalized advertising, and they're not. It's the people who are the little guy, the benefit they would get if you made $100,000 a year on the App Store, and Apple was taking 30% of a cut, that meant you were walking with 70,000. But Apple now changed it to where they only take 15%, so you would be walking away with 85. That $15,000 is going to make your life more comfortable. It isn't like it's the difference between you necessarily hiring someone else to help you out. Like if you're a small indie developer, your life just became more comfortable. It's the large companies where it goes from being like your life is comfortable to big buku bucks. So yeah, it's great for the little guy, but like Epic is doing this because they want hundreds of millions, not hundreds of millions. Like that's really what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting case to watch because again, like Valve is now under pressure because all of the other alternative app store game stores are lowering their rates. Apple's under pressure because all these other stores are lowering their rates. It's going to be a harder time convincing a judge that 30% is the norm. And so I think what might happen is that judge might say 30% isn't the norm anymore, but you don't have to open up your ecosystem. And
yeah.
I think that's where this will land.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this is handled moving forward because it's super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
the thing is, like, every tech company and really everybody should be watching this court case and seeing what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I think that does put a lot of pressure on the judge.
Oh, yeah.
And
to give you even some more perspective, Epic is suing Apple not just in the United States.
Yeah.
International courts. So I first saw this like a court in Australia. The judge literally went and basically said, no, I'm not going to take this case. And basically was like, the judge in California has to hear the Australian argument. He's just like, what? Like, they are, like, international courts are passing the buck because they don't want to make the ruling knowing that the United States ruling is the one that actually matters.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of just passing the buck. And that means the pressure is on this judge because not only is this a major, like, market, this is like an international ecosystem for app development. Like, it's how this case goes is going to really determine like the App Store's future for the next decade. I hope Apple just lowers the walls a little, like lower the wall a bit, ease up on places where they have competition. And I think that's going to be best for the consumer and the Apple's competitors and the platform. I don't think Epic having its own store is good for anyone but Epic.
Yeah.
And by the way, yeah. Oh, having their own store, side loading, totally did them wonders on Android. So yeah, I guess that's my question. Do they want Apple to like not only let them have their own store, but force Apple to install it on all these devices?
No, there's no way that happens.
Like they're back to the side loading problem. Like
yeah, there's no way that happens.
Like it's just like I don't know what Epic's endgame is here. Maybe they just want the rate lowered. Like, and they're shooting for the sky in the hopes that they can get the rate down to 15%. Like, I don't know.
It could be.
And that
it could be a thing where, like, you know, when they film like R-rated movies and they film like incredibly horrible, terrible things that will never make the movie, but they put them in there just as like a catch, so you can keep other stuff in there.
Yeah, you put stuff in that to make sure to make sure these other things don't get flagged by the MPAA.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very legitimate strategy, but
yeah, so it could be that for Epic, but who knows?
Yeah, it should be very interesting to see how this one goes down. But let's move on. Our next topic, I don't really have much to talk about, even though this would be the type of topic I would normally be talking about. The Oscars happened last weekend.
Yeah, I have no notes other than like I didn't watch it, and once the awards came out, I was like, cool.
Yeah, I honestly had forgot about it. Like that's how like the past year in film had basically felt for me, was I just completely forgot about the Oscars until someone said in a meeting at work about talking about looking forward to the Oscars on the weekend, and I was like, the Oscars are this weekend?
Yeah.
Like, I did not know who was nominated. I didn't even realize it was going to happen. It was just like, oh yeah, the Oscars. Huh. I mean, I think one of the best things out of this Oscars was that the second female director has won Best Director. Also, first female Asian director won Best Director. So, hey, notable year for some of those things, but the past year in film has just been weird. Like, it just like, I don't really watch award shows anyway. I always feel like I can catch up on YouTube the next day. It's like YouTube, I can catch the monologue, and then I just need to know who won, and if there's any major highlights, someone will have them on YouTube. And this year, it felt like it was the ultimate expression of meh. Because, like, film this past year has been a bunch of waiting for COVID to end. Like, we had films delayed over a year, multiple times. So,
films that are in the can too, by the way.
Yeah.
Films that are like not being worked on actively. They're just sitting in a warehouse somewhere.
Films that are costing studios money because they had put marketing budgets together, spent them. COVID happened. They delayed it, started marketing it again. COVID spiked again, so they delayed it again. It just was like I remember reading somewhere that Bond is costing Sony and MGM, just because it sat around, it's probably going to add another $100 million to the budget. Just from marketing expenses, because they've had to delay it 3 times.
Yeah.
I'm sure something similar with Black Widow and a bunch of other films where it just was like they had started the marketing hype, and then all of a sudden the world's in a pandemic and it just had to shut down. And so it's just like, this I'm not surprised that this was like the lowest rated Oscars of like ever. Actually, I don't know if it was ever, but it was definitely the lowest rated in a long time. Because what movies came out last year that everyone's talking about? Yeah, that sound is a siren, not silence. I don't know if the microphone is actually picking it up, but yeah, it's just was just an odd year for film. Great for
It's an odd,
TV.
weird. It's an odd year all around.
Yeah, and so it just was like kind of one of those things where I threw this on here as a topic, not because I'm like, oh, let's talk about the Oscar winners, but more just like I can't tell you like what any of the nominees were for any of the categories for anything. And I honestly felt that way going through up and through December, where it just felt like this was an empty year where everyone could just skip this year for the Oscars and would have been fine. Who knows? So, Oscars. Any other thoughts?
No, I'm just curious and waiting to see what happens.
Yeah. I have a feeling we're going to get like a glut of films. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all if next year's Oscar race is super packed because of all the films that got held up from last year. Or 2021 is really like the 2020, 2021 combined because a bunch of films didn't release in 2020. So, probably a very packed and competitive year. We'll see. But let's move on to the big finale of the big finale. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Gotta love that suit,
So,
yo. James, throw up
yeah,
the
I mean,
spoiler tag. Let's just go in.
it looks just like the comic suit.
Yeah?
They nailed it. Did you watch the Assemble, by the way?
I haven't watched it yet.
So the interesting part, this isn't a spoiler for the Assemble thing, but they were talking about how the head cowl was a challenge because it connects to the suit. So it has the Batman problem where when he
Mm-hmm.
turns his head, it like folds or it has weird gaps, right? So they use
It's an
CG
odd
to like
design. Yeah.
yeah, so they use CG to clean it up. So when he like turns his head or when he like does any kind of head movement, the gaps don't show up or like it stays skin tight, right?
Yeah.
And so it's something where I was like, wow, you don't notice that happens and you don't notice it's weird. And then when they show you the raw footage where it's like, oh, there's like a huge gap here when he turns his head, or like this folds near his face when he like talks, like that, all
Cool.
that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, just like a little side note that I thought was interesting of like, wow, it's such an intricate design that's more complicated than you think it is. Um, but yeah, I love it. It looks just like the comic. I want that interaction. There's that famous page of him saving Spider-Man from the first issue of Captain America, the new Captain America. Um, Marvel was getting into like all new. They did a whole bunch of stuff with all new, all different. So that's where like they had that was the like all new, all different Avengers had Miles and Ms. Marvel and Falcon, Captain America in there, all that kind of stuff. So all new, all different Captain America was the first issue with Sam as kind of the titular Captain America, and the first page opens up with him saving Spider-Man. It's a very famous page, one of my favorite interactions in the comics, and so really hope we get that with him and Tom. It'd be really fun.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
I'm
the
guessing
series.
Spider-Man was on the run because he didn't help out.
No. So basically what it was I guess he like ran out of web cartridges or he missed his web or whatever, so he was plummeting to his death. Like he probably would have been fine because he's Spider-Man, but like he's just kind of free falling, and Sam catches him by the leg, and they have this very nice casual conversation about like, hey, how's it going? Good. How's your day going? Good. How's being Captain America? Good. Can I throw the shield? No. So you let me throw the shield? No, he didn't. Yeah, he did all the time. And then he's like, no. And then he goes, and it's a thing of like, hey, do you still have bird powers? He's like, bird, what? And he goes, like, can't you talk to birds? And he goes, no. And he goes, wait, I thought you're Falcon, like what? Why do they call you the Falcon? Why can't you? What? And he's like, I can still drop you, right? And he goes, okay, I'm shutting up. Yeah, that's like the whole panel. And it's like you gotta
Ah,
love stuff like that, right?
nice.
Yeah, you gotta love that kind of thing. Hold on. Okay. Um, But yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, the series itself is great.
Yeah. No. But what'd you think overall of this final episode?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a way better ending than the WandaVision one.
Yeah. My only I I felt like the only thing I didn't like that I would put my finger on with this episode was it almost felt like at one point the series gave up on the is she or isn't she the power broker with God, why am I
Oh, with Sharon Carter.
with yeah. And it felt like they it just kind of was one of those things where I'm like, like when you first run into her, you have that question, but then it felt like as the series went on, like they stopped trying to keep her loyalties, like the question of her loyalties, up in
I
the
thought they did a,
air.
I thought they did a pretty good job. I mean, like I kind of saw it coming from a mile away.
Yeah,
Um, but it wasn't the worst. Uh, I think there is something to be said for. I love the rumors that she's a scroll.
huh.
I love that rumor. That makes me very happy.
Um, I honestly, I think what it is the fact that she had that phone call in the episode prior, episode 5, linking up the Flag Smashers with the guy whose name I can't
With
remember.
Batroc?
Yeah, with Batroc. Like
Yeah.
if we hadn't seen that phone number, I think my complaint would or phone call. I think my complaint would be tossed out the window. Um,
Yeah, I think there is that was a little thing of like, yeah, okay, she's clearly the power broker.
yeah, and like I think if
Um,
they cut that phone call out, like we would still have the question of is she the power broker or not? Whereas like they have a clear interaction, her and Batroc, in like 6. It's just like that would have been the best moment for like the audience to be like, oh shit, she is the power broker. And instead it felt like the potential like tension of is she or isn't she had kind of been blown away because of that phone call.
yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from there, and
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think the thing with me with Sharon is like it's such an interesting dynamic to like, and they bring it up in the show in the finale where the Carter name has always been synonymous uh with trust and honor or whatever stuff like that, right? And it's such an interesting dynamic to set up moving forward now with her, and I think this could easily tie in with like where we're going with the armor wars and if she's a scroll secret invasion, right? Like all this stuff really kind of she becomes a really cool fulcrum and pivot point for
Yeah.
all of the other stuff that could happen. Where it's like, cool, I really like this, and I really like the setup of this.
Yeah,
Um,
I really like this what it is setting up because it means that Sharon Carter isn't just a random character that got lost in the past of the series. She's relevant to the MCU, but
yeah,
it just like the execution could have just been a little bit cleaner. But if that's my biggest complaint about episode 6 is they could have done that better. Like,
yeah, that the ending is so good. Uh, all the Sam stuff, the speech at the end,
God,
and
Sam's
then
speech at the end, my bravo. Like, seriously,
yeah,
bravo.
the speech at the end, and then also the Sam's entire thing with Isaiah Bradley going taking him to the
Yeah.
Smithsonian
Yeah,
was
that was
all
such a nice
super cool.
touch. Um, like, they handled
I
that
feel like I feel
just
like it's so
perfectly.
easy to yeah, it's so easy to like leave them at Isaiah's house like after that conversation they have
Yeah.
where Isaiah kind of accepts him and moves on. I think like it's such an easy thing
That, yeah, could have
to
been the end of it, but then they
yeah,
gave us that
they
little
add that little
tag, and that
snippet
was
at the
just like,
end.
and you know what? That made it even better because it showed not just that Sam recognized Isaiah Bradley's, service, and Isaiah recognizing and appreciating that Sam is Captain America, that you can have a black Captain America. It is Sam using what resources he has to correct a wrong to the best of his ability. And that is something as simple as being like, I know Steve would want this guy to also be in the Smithsonian right next to me, and getting that done. Like, it says a lot about Sam as a character, and it gives, a sense of not necessarily closure for Isaiah Bradley, but it just, like, recognition that the man deserved.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, no, I loved the Isaiah Bradley thing. I loved the speech he threw at the politicians. Like, it just was, when Sam took the mantle and was speaking as Captain America, it just was like, yeah. And it's a recognition of one of the reasons why Steve was a good Captain America was because he was literally the little guy who got beat up but kept fighting.
Yeah, and so this one they used the parallel of quote unquote the little guy as being a black man.
Exactly.
Of like someone that was.
You don't have to be small to be the little guy. You can be the little guy if society is set up to work against you.
Right. It's such a cool setup. I love it.
Which is why Sam is ultimately a better Captain America than our U.S. agent could ever hope to be. U.S. agent.
So this was. I know people had problems with this. I kind of liked it. I kind of like his turn at the end. I think it's a little sudden, but I do like because at the end of the show, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to. I think they did a really good job of like making sure that you dislike John Walker, but you also understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, I agree. I thought his turn was a little sudden. But
again,
it didn't seem out of character.
No, the turn wasn't sudden. It was the buddy elements of when they catch the flag smashers is the little buddy moments with him and Bucky.
Yeah, it was just like a
little off.
Yeah,
but I liked it. I liked the moment. I would have liked a little more between where like you see them sort of put aside their differences.
Yeah, it's also I like the fact that we are set up to not like him, but also at the same time sympathize with him throughout the entire run of the series.
Yeah, because you understand like the pressure and you understand the human element, right?
Him and where he's coming from. You don't like him, but then he does stuff like this and you're like, I can't hate him either.
Yeah.
But I also don't think he's on the right side, but I don't know if he would realize it. Yeah, it is setting up a very interesting dynamic within the cinematic universe that honestly couldn't exist if there wasn't TV shows.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of how they're able to do with these TV shows, kind of what I've said, like one of the biggest strengths of Star Wars is the fact that there's so much more than just the Skywalkers out there, where you can just do the Skywalkers and be fine and enjoy it, but there's so much of this universe to explore, and MCU has never been able to do that until now. Or if they did do it with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it was a debate, even while the show was on. Is this canon or is it not? And that's even still a debate of, is it canon or is it not? And it's just... And this is where I like the phrase canon light, where it is canon when it lines up with the universe, and it is not canon if it gets in the way of a story.
Yeah.
The best way to look at stuff like that. It's the same thing I feel about Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. It's canon until it gets in the way of another story. And I think that's good. It is, for all my qualms about the Marvel Universe, I think some of the issues I have are being addressed because they can address them in this format and would not be able to do it in a movie. Sam would not be caught in a scene at a bank for as long as he was if this had been a movie.
Yeah.
This had been a movie, his sister probably wouldn't have not been a character. Like, that entire slub plot would have been dropped.
I love that subplot too.
Yeah. And I think it's important. And I love and hate how I've seen people online complain about that. That they've been doing all these, I just wanted to go into the action. It's like, no, this is what's been missing from the MCU is like the human element. Like the criticism of that I've heard some people levy is like, New York gets destroyed, but it almost seems like everyone's lives is outside of the heroes, everyone's lives ends like a sitcom where it just kind of goes back to normal at the end. For everyone who isn't a main character, and this is finally showing that no, that's not true.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are spaces like where they can be fine, but I'm glad they're addressing it because it makes these characters more interesting. It gives them greater depth. It makes them more human.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, like I really did enjoy Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah. So did I. Side note: did you see the screenshots or the pictures that came out, leaked out, I guess, about for the Miss Marvel show?
No.
So it shows what I would assume is the final act Miss Marvel costume, and she looks perfect.
When is that one out? I know we get is that one of the ones that's slated for this year, or is that coming out next year? Because there's so many damn shows coming out.
Yeah, there's a lot of shows coming out. I think that one's the end of this year.
Yeah.
Nice. Make sure I can find it for you real quick while we finish this up.
Because I know we got
here it is.
Loki in June, which honestly, I love that trailer. I know we already talked about it, but I loved the trailer for Loki. It looks like a great deal of fun. And then
yeah, here you go, Logan. Here's the suit.
Oh, nice.
It looks so good.
That's nice.
I will say this too. Marvel has been killing it with these suits in these shows.
Well, no, it's kind of like the criticism you would get thrown at the X-Men series, where they did away with like the iconic look because it's like there was a level of disrespect towards comics, I would argue, in 2000s comic book film, or the comic book film genre, was mostly disrespectful to the comics. In the sense that they would didn't treat the source material seriously, or didn't think it was good enough. They would not putting the X-Men in all black.
Yeah.
Everyone's in all black, and it's just things like that. Where even if someone was a fan of the series, they would just not do it because the audience won't take it seriously. It's just clearly they were wrong.
Yes. In more ways than one.
Yeah. That said, I do think Zack Snyder did one thing right. No underwear on the outside.
Yes.
That is one change I agreed with.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, changing the costume is fine. Just completely disrespecting the costume is different. And it felt like there was a level of Hollywood not wanting to take comic book the source material seriously until Marvel themselves were making them.
Yeah.
And that's why we get costumes like this, because there's no way in hell that would be the costume if this was a movie being made. I mean, admittedly, Ms. Marvel would not be a movie being made in the mid-2000s. But if it was, her costume wouldn't look like that. Or if it did look like that, it was because the movie was about to be really, really cheesy and set in the same universe as the Fantastic Four, which I know you do enjoy, but my God, I can never sit through them without dying. Yeah, no, we're reaping Disney, seriously, Disney Plus is proving its value to, at least to me as a consumer.
Yeah. Same.
Like, I don't need 5 new shows every weekend. I can get one a month if it's good. I'm golden. Yep. Yeah, and we'll get another one in a couple days with Bad Batch.
Yes, well, we get Bad Batch. Big Shots is still going on. Mighty Ducks is still going on. Disney
I
Plus
need to get
killer.
caught up on my Mighty Ducks, and I still need to watch Big Shot, which you recommended to me last episode. And yeah, it's the same thing with going back to the Apple Spring event. Did you see the trailer for Ted Lasso?
Yes, I did.
It's like one of those things where I think Disney Plus and even Apple on the same level. Like, Apple's having trouble with, I think, market penetration, but they are going for quality over quantity. And I think Disney knows that part of its branding means that there is going to be some cheesy stuff. Like, Mighty Ducks has a bit of cheese, but that's the point. But they are going with shows that are good, even if they're cheesy, rather than just trying to throw out as much content as they can, because it feels like Netflix in particular is becoming more and more of a content farm rather than a curator. And I think that is both to Apple and to Disney's benefit, because I got the free Apple Plus or Apple TV Plus subscription because of buying a device whenever. Like, I'm still on my initial free one. That's how often they've extended it because of COVID. But I know it lapses before Ted Lasso comes back. I'm re-upping it because I want to watch Ted Lasso. Just the one show. And Netflix again, and that's the key, is I don't know. I don't think Netflix has... It isn't that they don't have shows that I would be willing to watch. But I think their release platform strategy also works against them, because I could sign up for a weekend free trial, binge Stranger Things, and then be done.
Yeah.
Like, I think Netflix's model is good for some shows, not good for others. And I think, and I think the Disney Pluses and the Apples of the world are the ones who are standing to benefit the most from having a smaller catalog. So yeah, I think that about does it. This might be our shortest episode in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty slow week.
Yeah,
pretty slow couple weeks.
Pretty slow couple weeks.
We do have. I think by the time our next show comes around, we might have Mass Effect.
I think we're either on the verge of Mass Effect or it's out by that point. No, I think Mass Effect comes out the next day.
Oof. Okay.
Isn't it the 17th?
Thought it was the 14th.
Okay, either you are going to be like, oh my God, Mass Effect, or you're going to be like, oh my God, can we please just fast forward to Mass Effect?
I think it's the 14th because that's a Friday.
Yeah. That would make more sense than a Monday. But, yeah. Next episode should be pretty fun. But I think we should wrap this up.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the fun things you're supposed to do. Like liking, sharing, and subscribing. You can always send any questions to feedback@quality3.net. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all the socials at Quality3TV. Stay safe. CDC guidelines say you don't have to wear a mask outside if you've been vaccinated, but you should wear a mask.
Well, please do.
But please wear a mask anyway. Also get vaccinated. Yes, your arm will hurt for a few days, but it's worth it. Stay safe, take care, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.